Good morning, viewers. Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Vibhuti Jha. As you know, my program is always about issues that affect the world, and we go deep dive into that to understand the impact and implication of what is happening around us. And we have been infected, affected, impacted by the element called coronavirus, and it has kind of totally changed the world. Just as we know the history post Napoleon and before Napoleon, post Second World War, before Second World War. I think the history of the world and the humankind will be known as pre-coronavirus and post-coronavirus. What have we learned from it? And how do we cope up with the tragedies of this kind that is part of an education, as I say it. Education because of the fact that, coronavirus has taught one thing for sure, that it was totally non-discriminatory. It hit every country in the world. It hit every age group of people, some less, some more. It hit every gender. It was completely country neutral, race neutral. In every sense of the term, Mother Nature taught us a lesson through the shenanigans of the human beings, whether coronavirus is a man-made disaster or it is a natural phenomenon. Only investigations will throw later on. But from what we know, it has really impacted the world around us. Presidents changed, countries have been impacted, heads of states have been impacted. Boris Johnson, as one of his supporters said, he's no longer the same guy. And one of the football players said that because of coronavirus, his running ability and his breathing ability was affected, and he couldn't play to his full potential. Now, why is it important? It's also important for us Indians, because we are practitioners in reality of a thing called Sanatan Dharm. And Sanatan Dharm is all about nature, Mother Nature, respecting nature, the world around us is gender neutral. Its neutrality and universality is globally approved. So this is the time for us to take our values and our virtues to the world around us, to attend to the issues and challenges that impact us. Now, to discuss this matter today, I have great privilege and honor to welcome a remarkably young man. He's known as Ishan Shivanand. Ishan lives in Bay Area. So Ishan, welcome to the show. And, Ishan's introduction is that he is an international executive coach, performance wellness expert, as also a trainer in Hindu philosophy, in meditation, consciousness, creating awareness, individual awareness, thereby improving human performances. How does it affect? And he is very young. I will not disclose his age, but when you see him, you will realize that he's a remarkably young man. He has embarked on a mission, which is part of his essential being. And I will start by asking Ishan, how did you get involved in such a global mission? And how have you expanded your reach to the world around you with an ambition and a desire? Because ambition and desire, many people have, but only those who have the commitment take it forward. I have a policy, I have a principle, I call it the 90% principle. Any idea that strikes me today or you has struck at least 1 billion people at the same time. 90% of the people drop out, and the remaining 10% take it the next step. Then again, 90% drop out because it's too tough, too difficult, too busy, no money, and people will drop out. Then there will be another step taken. Eventually, there will be final 0.1 percentile who will achieve success. And then remaining 99.9 will say, oh, idea to mera tha. So the world belongs to those who take action about their beliefs and promises. So Ishan, I would leave it to you to introduce what you do, how you do, and what's your ambition and goal about this.
First of all, Mr. Jha, I would like to say I'm honored and thankful that you invited me to speak in your prestigious program. And for the last few minutes, I've been listening to you, and you are a very well educated and, dare I say, moving towards enlightenment. And it is extremely beautiful when you talk to a person that's resonating at such a high frequency. That
Thank
being said, I come from the lineage of Shiv Yoga. Shiv Yogis are people who you must have read about them in history. They're always there. When Alexander the Great invaded India and he was hurt in his battle with Porus, he had pulmonary edema, his lung was punctured, and his physician, Philip, he could not heal. So they went looking for yogis, the Shiv yogis, and they had heard stories about these people who were legendary doctors who lived one with nature, and they had these sciences that people had not heard about. So Macedonian history talks about Kalan. They call him Kalanos. So Kalan Maharshi was one such gentleman who healed Alexander's not just the body, but the mind as well. Because you have to think about it, a person who was just conquering has to have some form of anxiety within him. And it's said that after that battle, Alexander did turn back and left his body in Babylon. So you can read about Shiv yogis and their sciences throughout history, may it be as written by the Greeks, may it be written by Farhine when he visited India, or may it be through legends. But traditionally, Shiv yogis only taught to one student. So there was this whole culture that there would be a master and he would have one student. And you would see that Matsyendranath taught Gorakhnath, or Ramakrishna Paramhans taught Swami Vivekanand, and there was generally one. So it was my father who is the current guru of the Shiv Yoga lineage, who said that our knowledge and our way of life is disappearing, and we must take the beauty of our culture out into the world. And you have to understand that our culture has influenced the popular understanding in manners that we don't even comprehend. And it's there. So even if you watch a superhero movie, they will always go to the east to find the answers. The whole world goes to the east. And where is the east? The east is in the ashrams of India. And my father said that we must do something to bring our culture back into the forefront, because people need it. People need health. They need peace. They need prosperity. They need this understanding that there is more to life rather than just consumption. So he changed a legacy in which thousands of years had not been changed. He started teaching to people. And since an early age, he prepared me that Ishan, you have to learn and you have to go into the world and teach, because he believes knowledge grows when it is spread. So I must give him all the credit that this was my one single purpose of life. Since early age, that is how I was prepared, that is how I was trained, that is how I was educated. And when my time came, I started teaching the secrets of Shiv Yoga around the world.
That's quite a remarkable story that your father was your guru and your teacher who gave you the direction that your life has now taken this shape. So, how long ago was that that you began to realize and feel that this was your arena? Because what happens is, majority of the time, the young people in India, in the absence of job opportunities, everybody's looking at jobs, and jobs. And in India particularly, you look for a government job for security. You look for a job in a bank to just stay afloat. So these are the very important things. Many young people in India, India is a remarkably entrepreneurial country because we are of that intention that we grow individually. So how does it happen that how did you uh, choose this path and not go for a traditional quote unquote a job or a job security therein?
I think because of what I saw. So my father, he bought this piece of land in Rajasthan, and it was a basically a desert. And he started to show the applications of Sanatan Dharma, that how vivid they are. Generally, when a person thinks about religion, he thinks about philosophy, theology, and there's no practical application to the science. But through the practices of Shiva Yoga, he was able to create abundance in a desert. He was single-handedly responsible for the green revolution that came in that area. He created prosperity through Sanatan Dharma, where he taught farming tendencies, he taught horticulture, he taught how to be one with nature and create from nature. So there was always this abundance, and whatever he did, he was a phenomenal success in it. Till the age of 12, I did not go to a traditional school. And finally, my mother, she pushed my father that he has to go to a school. And I was first time sent to school in 8th standard. And when I went to school, I realized that I was very good at everything. And why I was good? Because of what I was taught, the connection with the inner self. And as I started to grow up in traditional schooling, I realized all my friends, they were stressed when the board exams came. Oh my goodness, that's when an Indian is most stressed, when the board exams comes. And I simply did not feel that. I did not have that. Why? Because I had this strong grounding that was presented to me. And I realized that the world really has got it wrong, that we are so focused in making our technology intelligent that all our intelligence is now external, and the internal intelligence, nobody is working upon that. The emotional intelligence, nobody is working upon that. Long ago in India, even princes were first sent to Gurukul, because the king knew that if I do not work on helping the prince understand his biology, psychology, physiology, and I give him all this power, then he will grow up to be an idiot. So the first thing the prince was also taught was to master himself, his mind. And I saw this in the world, that we ourselves are the last priority. What we eat, what we put inside us, what we think, it is just not taught. How to deal with stress is not taught to a child. And I realized the potential that lies in this emotional education that can come through the Sanatan Dharma. And the more I saw the world, the more I realized this vacuum that existed, that people don't know. They think that prosperity shall come if we burn the candle from both ends. And yes, prosperity may come. But what would be the joy that would come out from the prosperity if after running after prosperity, you've lost your health, you've lost your relation, you've lost your family, the body has become an addict, the mind is gone, then what is the use of that prosperity? And we see this in the Western world, especially if you look at the deaths of despair, or deaths by addiction, or deaths by people who supposedly have everything, are millionaires, billionaires, but then don't know how to cope with the demons inside. And that's when I realized that, this is something that needs to be done. And I started to teach people. And what motivated me was the phenomenal results that we got. Because one thing is faith. Now, faith is dangerous. In faith, you're supposed to believe everything that's been told to you. My father never tell me to be faithful or believe. He said, be experiential, research. If something works, make it better. And if something doesn't work, disregard it. And I was so amazed that everything that I was taught through Sanatan Dharma, it created such fantastic prosperity for people that I said, I do not have to believe it. It is a universal truth. So that is what motivates me, helping people realize the truth and the potential that is within them. And that is why I did not go for something, what you say is traditional, because What we see is not traditional. It is just 100 years old. After maybe World War II, it started that you must get a job or do this or do that. But if you look at the Sanatan Dharma, the self-realization is something that is eternal, and the ancient fashion is something that I'm following and trying to make people understand that this is really fashionable and you should pursue this.
That's truly remarkable that you got out of the beaten track, and the people who excel in life are the ones who take a path which is not trodden by millions. You want to be different, and that's where you begin to make a difference. That's what life is all about. So you are making a difference, and I'm very delighted, particularly with the fact that majority of the youth in India, they say that नौकरी लो, खेलोगे खेलोगे कूदोगे बनोगे खराब पढ़ोगे लिखोगे बनोगे नवाब. That is the kind of a saying that goes, and it kind of drove millions of young people in trying to compete to get a job. And in my work with the young people, I always tell them, don't look for a job. You will always get one. Whether the job is about flipping a burger in Burger King or making a batata vada in Mumbai, that job you will always get. But should you try to adventure into finding life, then you never have to work, because everybody has a God-given talent. And I teach the young people that don't look for a job, find your inner talent. Once you have established and found your inner talent, which you are talking about realizing yourself, then develop the skill sets, because there's a combination of the East and West is very important. You alluded to that. So once you find a job, your skill, your essential talent, then build the skills around that and drive it with your value system. You will never have to work. And I use sports as my metaphor for everything in life. I learn, my guru is sports. I always take lessons from sports. And I say, if you put 5 sportsmen, let's put it this way: current generation's Virat Kohli as a cricketer, Roger Federer, Rafa Nadal as tennis player, Kobe Bryant, my favorite, who is no more, Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. These are people who have exemplified performances in their chosen domain. Just for the moment, freeze and try to recognize, what if Michael Jordan was playing baseball? We know from that example that he was a total failure in baseball. So if Michael Jordan had chosen baseball because that was fashionable in America at that time, the world would not have known Michael Jordan as a basketball player. The phrase that I want to be like Mike won't be existing. Virat Kohli, just imagine him playing golf, because Tiger Woods is a great golf player. It's a stylish game. You are always dressed up well. You don't exert physically. So if you just rotate these 5 individuals or 6 individuals to playing other person's sports, you would have total failures around us, right? And that's what performance means. You identify yourself and then go into that wholeheartedly. Now, what is important is that you don't become a proficient or a master of the subject until you commit yourself to learning, being coachable, be amenable to being mentored, because the games change, the tools change. So the question arises then is that these people have a mindset of being a learner. They have a mindset and a character of that I will always lose a game, but I have to come back. So you get over your deficiencies and come back to play again. So, but then I would also say one more thing here, and I want to reach out to the youth in India. That's very important. You are here in the United States, you are running a global institution. Share with us, how do we make this a phenomenon in India where the demographic dividend, which is called the youth in India, is what it is? How this demographic dividend can be prevented from becoming a demographic burden? Because what is gift today is a waste tomorrow. So the question is, how do we use your practices. And you are a young Indian. How do you reach out to the young Indians in India to encourage entrepreneurship and achieve their full potential? How do you see the match happening?
See, the first thing that we have to understand about India is India can be overwhelming. So if I talk about my classroom, when I went to school, there were 70 students inside one class and there were 7 grades. So if you just talk about the fifth standard, I want to imagine the magnitude of people that you are dealing with. So even when you are competing, there are a lot of people. So what happens with this overwhelming sense of people is there comes a fear of loss and a fear of missing out, which I see a lot in Indian parenting, where every parent will say, कि शर्मा जी के बेटे को देखो, शर्मा जी की बेटी को देखो, you know, XYZ, कि वो तो ये कर गए, तुमने क्या किया है, वो तो ये कर गए, तुमने क्या किया है, because there is so much. So people try to push themselves and then they take a path. Now the path that is being taken, nobody looks at the path and says that, is this the correct path? Or this is just something that's being done. When a person meditates or when a person practices Sanatan Dharm, the first thing that he inculcates for himself is honesty towards the self. Now, honesty will never let you do something that doesn't allow you to do that. If you are in connection with your heart and you're honest to yourself, then you won't do something. Because if you look at midlife crisis literally is that you did something or you were pushed to do something and finally now the body is rebelling कि मैंने क्या कर दिया अपनी जिंदगी के साथ, मुझे तो कुछ और करना.
Right.
And that is why I love working with the youth. And when we meditate with the youth, or when we teach them the laws of Sanatan or Shiv Yoga, they learn this honesty and they become fearless. And then they realize that life is not happening to them, life is happening for them. And this is extremely important. If you look at Shakespeare, Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage. Many times people get too attached to their job. And I saw this in the West, it's not like that. Zuckerberg famously said, fail fast, learn fast. You tell that to an Indian youth, that it's all right to fail. Oh my God, there is so much pressure from society that you cannot fail. You should not fail. If you fail, you are gone. And here in the West, there is fearlessness. It's okay. Even if you fail, learn a lesson. In fact, you have to break a few eggs to make an omelette. Ironical, I'm using this because I'm pure vegetarian, but still, you know, there is this confidence. And I feel that the youth in India should be given back their confidence. And it's not a confidence that's taken away in this generation. Maybe because India was under the British, or maybe before that India was under the Mughals, or maybe of all the things that India went through, that confidence, that heritage, that roots which every Indian had to his ancestors was slowly, systematically chopped away. Now, when the roots are not there, when the pride is not there, when the connection to the ancestors not there, then of course there is going to be compliance, there is going to be fear, there is going to be bhed. What I try to do is I try to remind the Indian youth that you come from titans, you come from legends, you have this great infinite potential within you that if you can tap and activate, and if you can believe in yourself. And it's so very funny that I see so many Indian children may not be able to be successful in India, but when they go out into the world, they become very, very successful. Why? Because suddenly they are confident and they believe in themselves. So charity always begins from home, and the connection needs to be remade. So basically, we can't live a society with amnesia. We can't forget our culture, we can't forget our heritage. And I believe the more a student learns these things, the more he will grow, the more he will be unafraid to take chances, and then he will succeed.
You hit upon, you are saying things that are music to my ears. At the same time, you are preaching to the choir, because these are my beliefs too. So we are transcending generations here. You are younger than my son, and my generation, like, if I may share a conversation piece, was, you said the fear. I belong to a generation, came from India, where to get a good job, you had to compete with hundreds and thousands of people, right? To get into Reserve Bank of India, my batch, more than 150,000 young men and women wrote a 7-hour exam in one day. 9,000 were called for interview. We faced a 9-member, very powerful Reserve Bank of India Services Board for 50 open jobs of 100 advertised, of which 25% was reserved for SC, ST, and 25% was reserved for internal candidates. So that was the system. So we had no aptitude, no ability, but just getting a job in a great organization was measure of your success, right? That I fitted into the job or not didn't matter. I know by virtue of my own understanding and realization that I did not fit that structure, because I was not deigned or designed to be a bureaucrat. I'm independent. I like to be performing. I want to see the outcome of my efforts. So I left Reserve Bank of India after 7 years, about 8 years. People were scared of me. My father did some additional puja that I should get a sense that I should leave Reserve Bank of India. And even in, my father-in-law is a businessman. He said, you are taking undue risk. But I said, if I don't take risk, how would I know what life exists beyond me? So the choice is that. And I totally agree with you that Indian youth needs to break through their emotional, physical, sociological, and family barriers. And that is an individual journey. Now, this is easier said than done, by the way. It is also very important that applying the traditional 80-20 rule, not everybody can be Tiger Woods or Virat Kohli or Sachin Tendulkar or Roger Federer. There are so many players who play the game, but eventually it is about the talent. The man who is 40th or woman who is a 40th in tennis is fulfilling her abilities, which she would not have been able to do in another field. So coming back to the same question again, that, how it is important for us to know what tools do we apply. So we know theoretically every Indian knows everything. I mean, I say this with a sense of laughter that, इंडिया में आप जाएं तो मैं बहुत बार गया हूं इंडिया, बहुत बार लोगों से बात की है. लोग कहते हैं कि आप हमें क्या सिखाएंगे, हमको तो सब पता है, right? So Maharishi Mahesh Yogi made transcendental meditation a global phenomenon. And he made that acceptable in this part of the world by allowing the Department of Health and Human Services in United States to examine the impact of meditation on the body, right? And they found there is scientific evidence in Department of Health. I have the booklet here, which says that how a meditator's blood pressure is low, cholesterol is low, his stress levels are low, right? And this is something which I learned in America, is that this country welcomes failure. It is a country of comeback kids. Now, this requires a cultural shift in India to happen for the Indian youth, because they have not experienced this. Not all of them have the fortune of coming to America. And you are right. When Indians come here, they do well, primarily because first thing, we don't even feel the competition here, right? And that's the reason why we excel in this part of the world, because we know there is nobody to stop me doing from whatever I wanted to do. That's the important part. How do we take that culture shift in India for today's generation of your age, who is actually struggling for job security? How do we take that major step? And to that end, I was reading your website, your fabulous work you have done. You have a young visionary program, And you also have what is called as a soul revival meditation. Tell us something about that.
See, one thing that I try to teach is we must let go of a burden that we are carrying. And I'm talking about a generational shame and guilt that can be picked up. The first teacher that we have is our parents, and our parents teach us what they had learned. And many times we are inheriting a lot of peeves of our parents, and not everybody is blessed, as you rightfully said, to be extremely successful. But here, what I would like to say is that everybody can be blessed to be happy. Because it doesn't mean happiness that I become Tiger Woods and I will be happy, or I become Kobe Bryant and I will be happy. The typical definition of a yogi is somebody who can sit and smile and be one with the universal happiness. Now, we cannot be one with the universal happiness if we are carrying a lot of burden. Now, what COVID has taught us is it has taught us a lot about sanitization. We go everywhere and people are very aware of the germs that they can pick up. So everybody's wearing a mask, everybody is putting hand sanitizer, because they are saying we can't take outside germs and bring them inside our house. Now, if you can become aware of external sanitization, I want you to think about mental sanitization. We don't think from which relation we are picking up which nonsense, or from which activity we are picking up nonsense, or from the Facebook or television or Instagram. What is the nonsense that we are picking up? And sooner or later, this drop by drop, it is going to become an ocean, and it is going to affect us physically, mentally, or socially. So when we are meditating, or when we are doing these meditations, or when we are doing the soul revival, what I teach to people is I give them the tools so they can let go of these things that subconsciously they are carrying. And once they do that, they realize that happiness is not that difficult. We did this research in the last year. We did a research on 10,000 people in 31 countries, out of which 5,000 were in India and about 4,000 were in United States. Now, during COVID time, we were doing research with Yoga of Immortals. It's a protocol system that I've designed using these ancient techniques and how to make them applicable and relevant to today's life. So there were 10,000 people who participated in this study, and you won't believe, during the COVID time, the quality of life index throughout the world went down. It dipped. Of course, it's dipping because you can't go out, you can't eat, you can't meet with people, you can't go to schools, everything is online. So quality of life index dipped. But you won't believe that out of the 10,000 people that were part of our study during the 1 year program, where they just practice 45 minutes per day, their quality of life index, 77% went up. Zoom. Now they are also sitting in home. They are also going through the whole pandemic that the world is going through, but their quality of life index went up. And we had all these parameters where we were measuring health, we were measuring their psychology, we were measuring their stress index. And this makes you realize that this whole concept, this definition of happiness, it's wrong. कि पढ़ोगे लिखोगे बनोगे नवाब, या ये करोगे या वो करोगे, या गाड़ी होगी या फिर बीवी होगी या फिर बच्चे होंगे, all these things have nothing to do with happiness. That is something that is a very internal phenomena. And I'm not saying don't have a wife, don't have a career, do all these things, but at least be truthful, because if you are a miserable person from inside, then you are being bad to even your children. What is their fault? Imagine if I am broken, if I have viruses inside my head, and now I am making a new software in a child, then how unethical it is to raise a child with the same issues that I had. And what we have to understand is the internal mental sanity and sanitization is one of the most important and powerful things. And when that comes, when happiness comes, then relationships and work becomes more fulfilling. And that is what I try to do. I try to give these tools to people. And when they receive them, they are shocked. Because the irony of life is some people become used to being miserable. कुछ ऐसे लोगों को मैं जानता हूं जो मुस्कुराना भूल ही गए, उनको लगता है अब यही जिंदगी है. They have been gaslighted into thinking कि जी मैं मूर्ख फलकामी, कि मैं तो मंद हूं और भगवान मेरे को टेस्ट कर रहा है और जिंदगी में तो केवल दुख ही दुख है. और उन लोगों के जीवन में जब खुशी आती, I think that is something that is priceless, and that is what I'm trying to achieve with the youth. But as I said, you will have to take out the time and cut the umbilical cord of the past grievances, because until and unless you don't pull out the arrow, you can't heal.
You are remarkably truthful and remarkably honest in sharing your wisdom and your experience with everything else, people around you. And I would say that for a revolution to happen, one has to cut their umbilical cord with the past and stop fearing. You know, that there's something like somebody once told me, don't you fear death? I said, no, it has to happen sometime. So how will I die? I have no control over it. So why would I fear about death? So if you don't fear death, then nothing else matters. And you know, you talk about the research that you did with 10,000 people. Our research indicated, the way we worked with our company, was that 90% or more number of times, things you fear don't happen. And when fear grips you, then you get more immobilized. So if you encounter a threat and if it immobilizes you, then you are going to have the impact of that particular threat. But if you begin to face that, to recognize the threat, then it becomes important. Then you know what to do about it. So 90% plus, the things that you feared most don't happen. And if they were to happen, those remaining balanced number of times, you find a way to deal with that. The good, the bad, the ugly, as the saying goes. So like, for example, you know, Tom Friedman in his book, Lexus and the Olive Tree, you know, rest of his book is all pedantic. I don't value them as a great literary work, but Lexus and the Olive Tree is a thought book in which he talks about, I love that book. That's where I respect Thomas Friedman for that reason, Tom Friedman. He says that, you know, fear, when fear grips you, that's where you end up dying. So if you are standing behind a bush, he gives that example. If you are standing behind a bush and the bush rattles, now you don't know what is behind that bush. Now you are full of fear, kya karu, because you do not know what there is on the other side. But the moment you remove that bush or you peek through that, and if you see a rabbit, then you realize, wow, that was nothing to fear. But if there is a tiger there, then you know what to do to escape or to take evasive action, right? So the moment you remove the fear, you know what action to take, or you know what is frightening in that scenario. But you know, these are great stuff, but let me get back to the brass tacks when the rubber hits the road. And I have attended many training programs in my life. I had the privilege of attending some really great programs as part of the management team that I was. One thing I found was that you do the training program is achieving an emotional high in those programs after 2 days. You know, there's a lot of kumbaya kind of a spirit. You know, people say, oh, everything, life is so great. The moment you go back to office, you realize it is the same old crap. Nothing changes in us. So what do you do in your training program that installs a shift or a permanent change? That I will do this differently. And I'll share with you what I mean by that is also that individually we live in a remarkably imperfect world. You know, so My becoming aware of something is a relation to something else, right? So what we began to do was that if you want to bring about a shift, work with groups of people, because people learn from each other. Learning is a societal experience, right? And how do you create individuals who learn to imbibe things that, regardless of whatever happens, come hell or high water, I'm not going to drift from my path? But that's a very tough call. And I have seen that happen in my as many years of my professional experience at senior management levels, that the world is remarkably imperfect. How do you deal with that imperfection of the world, because we live in it? So share your thoughts on that, and do emphasize on, share with us a little bit more about your soul revival meditation. What is it all about?
See, first of all, I would like to say that what you touched upon with fear is something very fascinating, because we live in a time of instant gratification. A few years ago, there was a 2-minute rule in YouTube, meaning all videos should be 2 minutes, and that is how you can keep a person's attention for 2 minutes. A few days ago, I was doing a conference where it was now a 3-second rule. From 2 minutes, the attention span has gone to 3 seconds. So things like Twitter or Facebook, with so much amount of words or with this much time, somebody has to be gratified. Now, in such an era of gratification, people forget that all these emotions that we are talking about, fear, it's not bad. What is bad is what is our relationship with that emotion. Because if you look at joy, a lot of joy comes from fear. If you, the first time I came to America, I went to this place called Six Flags. And oh my God, the rides up and down, up and down. And when you look at the rides, they make you feel fear, but it's a good fear. You're feeling joyous when you're looking at that fear. You're paying extra money to feel that fear. The first time I went on a date with my wife, with my to-be wife, I was very afraid. I was born and raised in a monastery. I've never been with a woman, and I was touching her hand and I was like, duk, 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 duk. And it was a very good fear. It was joy. And people have a very bad relationship with pain and fear, especially in this country. You have to see the highest amount of painkillers and painkiller addiction, that the moment fear comes or pain comes, just get rid of it. If you don't want it, try to numb ourselves with something. Thank God it's Friday, so that we can just numb ourselves from the weekday with whatever chemicals we can put inside us. And we are not realizing that, yes, you will be numbed from fear, but you will also be numbed from the joy and the growth that can come from these emotions. What Gavin DeBecker said, it is not fear, it is a gift of fear that can help you evolve. Now, what I teach during my meditation processes is, and why they are different, because you are absolutely right. A lot of programs, they are very nice when you are in the program, but you can't take it back home. Because if I put it bluntly, a lot of it is marketing, it's a pitch. So when you are being marketed towards, you feel good, you feel excited. But if you look beyond the marketing, you'll find there are zero deliverables. A lot of programs out there, and I saw this, there are no deliverables. There is nothing take home value that you can take. And a lot of people say, oh, you do positive thinking. Of course, I want to do positive thinking, but it's not happening. Then they say, oh no, you think you have a Rolls Royce, and you can try doing that. Think I have a Rolls Royce, think I have a Rolls Royce. And from inside, the voice will come, no, you idiot, you don't. So people are saying that these are the things you have to do, but they are not so easy. The difference here is that we have this heritage of Sanatan Dharm, something that has helped people from thousands and thousands and thousands of years. How I like to put it is, just like McDonald's in this country, that they pop up and then they go away. Even today, when it comes to mindfulness, there are MEC mindfulness. Anybody can do a teacher training for 200 hours and call themselves an executive coach. But where is the research? Where is the data? Where is the science? Through Sanatan Dharma, we have been blessed with an ancient technology that has helped people over millennia. We have that data and we are walking on a path that not just tells you what to do, but it biologically changes the way you think. And earlier, we could not scientifically quantify what was happening. But thanks to all the wonderful doctors and all the medical teams that I'm working with right now, we can quantify the changes that happen through these processes in a person. Now, think about it. I'm telling somebody, think positive. But now, when he's doing these programs, I'm looking at his biology and I'm seeing his red blood cells are increasing, his brain chemistry is changes, his endocrinology is changing, the hormones are changing, the way a person immunity is, that is changing. So a person alchemically starts to evolve. So he may look quantifiably like a human being, but there is something beautiful that is happening inside. And I'm not saying fear goes away or stress goes away. It remains in life, but what changes is how we react to these emotions. And trust you me, that even fear starts to give a form of joy. And I'm not saying you become a thrill seeker, but I'm just saying you become thrilled about life. And that is why when I do these meditation programs, it's not a day or 2 day, it's a way of life, and it's a continuous learning program. That is what I teach, a CLP, a continuous learning program. It is not something that I can give in 2 seconds or 2 minutes. And then it happens so many times. I go to people and they are like, can you give me in 1 minute, what is it that I have to do? Some met mindfulness. And I'm saying, you want me to take all my culture of thousands and thousands of years and you want me to give you a tablet of it? That is not going to work. You will have to affirm and you will have to do some hard work and you will have to learn and you have to think to yourself that I really want to change my life. And if that is something you're willing to do and you're willing to put in the time, then I will teach you. And what I was able to do is I was able to make this community of people. So my father, he did a wonderful job. We were all children inside the ashram. And he prepared these children so brilliantly that almost all of them are now CEOs, or they are sitting in Wall Street, or they are sitting in Bay Area on top of companies. I won't name them, but they are in top of their group. And we were able to make this community because you rightfully said evolution cannot happen alone. So we were able to make this community, and we call them forums, where every single week millions and millions of people around the world.
Hold your thought here. Yes. And I'll be back in a few seconds.
Of course.
No, we were talking about the fact of creating the community, and that's the most important part of the learning part. As I was mentioning to you, that we learn from society. We are a social animal. Humans are social animal, and as a result of which we learn from the community we live in, starting from the family. We learn from our parents, right?
This is what something beautiful we were able to do. Because
earlier mentioned
yes,
that you had in your experiment or your study, you had 10,000 people, 5,000 were from India. And you also shared the number of success stories that people who have followed the principles, they are occupying the top positions. Now that's an inspiration. That's a visual that people can learn and see. So how would you go about to expand what in economics we call the multiplier effect, or 1 to the power of n, as I say in mathematical calculations? So that's what in Transcendental Meditation Experiment, which Maharishi Mahesh Yogi did here, that when he began to introduce Transcendental Meditation in cities and schools, why TM has caught on, or meditation as a word has caught on, including many of the later generations have come about here, is because it has a scientific validation. Now, how would you create that scientific validation for change is one by example, and that you have shown, and you have said that you have a lot of people who have achieved success with this process. How would you take this message that the 5,000 people in India who were part of this process or the experiment or study or analysis, how can we enroll them to make a multiplier effect shift in India? Or here for that matter, people in America are stressed out and people are committing suicide because of Corona. How do you create that multiplier effect? We do it in our work and we know that. And I'm asking you this because there is alone, or when you collaboration, mobilization, and cooperation are the elements that multiplies the impact and the spread. Your thoughts?
A few months ago, before Corona and all this happened, I was in a conference in London, and all these saints had come from India. And I was the only person from an ancient lineage that was wearing a suit and tie. And there were some saints who got offended. And they said, "Why you're not wearing a dhoti?" I said, I'm here for a conference with medical doctors. And how does it matter what I wear? You have to make your message in a manner that you reach out to a new demographic. But you won't believe that all these saints had all these old people that were in the last leg of their life in front of them, not one young person. Why? Because these saints weren't ready to evolve their message. They weren't ready to evolve themselves. And I told them that, see, you are pandering to a crowd that is already changed. These old people that are in front of you, there is only minimum you can do with them. And there is nothing that you can teach them. In fact, they have more to teach you. They have listened the Gita, the Mahabharata 1,000 times. They have done the Katha 1,000 times. Let's work towards creating a science. But these people were not ready. And that is when I thought that maybe it is not the fault of the student, or maybe the multiplier effect is not happening because log bure hain, but jin logon ka kaam sikhana hai, wo sahi tarike se nahi sikha rahe. There has to be a better delivery to a much more intelligent audience. And that intelligent audience is the one that can lead to trickle-down effect. When we don't reach with our message to the engineers, to the doctors, to the policy makers, to the scientists, then what is it that we are actually doing? So I made a very, very conscious decision that yes, there are a lot of people, there are a lot of old people that need to be taught, but I will take the message of Sanatan Dharma to the young crowd. And the difference here is that our movement is very young. So if I talk about numbers, the 10,000 people that were attending, out of that, almost 90% were with the age group of 25 to 35. So we are talking about young people who are following this path of wellness and spirituality. So I want you to imagine good-looking, smart, intelligent, sophisticated people working on their inner science, and not a group of old people doing bhajan kirtan. And that is what Sanatan needs to be revisited, because people have confused Sanatan Dharma, which is a principle, a way of life, with puja path. Sanatan was always about science. It was always about mathematics, Sushruta Samhita, the first plastic surgery. Kim Kardashian maybe has Indian monks to thank. So there was a lot of study that was done in our culture, and a lot of science that was improved. And somewhere down the line, it became ritualistic fear mongering. कि बच्चा बात नहीं सुन रहा, आपके पिताजी ने भी पूजा कराई. कि किसी ना किसी तरीके से rather than being a master of destiny, I am a slave to destiny and I have to pray to the gods for good things to happen in my life. And this is such a joke because we come from a culture of tapasvis, and tapasvis were the one who never were a slave to destiny. In fact, they did tapasya to change not just their destiny but the destiny of the country as well. So I make it a point, a thorough point, a very conscious point, to make sure my message reaches the young people. And then I hope that the trickle down can happen through them to their family. And I know that young people can be quite motivating. If you look at the McDonald principle, a child goes to McDonald for the happy meal. And because that child wants to go, his parents also go. So I think ours is the only spiritual movement where the child comes first and then he brings the parents, and the parents are like, हमें तो पूजा पाठ करना है, ये क्या, ये साधना क्या चीज है, ये क्या करा रहे हो आप लोग. फिर हमें पेरेंट्स को री एजुकेट करना पड़ता है कि आप सुपरस्टिशन छोड़ो, आप साइंस को लो, आप एक्चुअल में सनातन को लो. और मजाक की बात यह है जी कि, और दुख की बात भी है, that a Hindu doesn't know what it is to be a Hindu.
I cannot agree more with you because I believe that our generation, some of us were involved, so we are aware of that, but majority are not.
They have no idea. उनको लगता है that ये हमारा एक polytheist religion है और भगवान का ये करना है. उनको पता ही नहीं what is the science that goes beyond it. And I'm amazed. And as I said, इसमें बहुत like the blame is not just with the student, it's with the teachers as well, because everybody made their own sect, everybody made their own cult, everybody broke the unity that was supposed to be there. And people don't understand that Sanatan is one umbrella. We are one people. We must stand united to help the world in becoming a better place. And I feel that until and unless the young people don't do it, then, you know, the crazy thing is, I was in one of these countries in Southeast Asia, and that country used to be what it was, and it has great temples, unlike the ones I've ever seen in India. And there was this beautiful shivling, and people are sitting on it and tying their shoelaces, and nobody knows what it comes from, what culture is. And I saw the horror of what society can become if we let the science vanish. So if the saints don't make a conscious effort, our way of life can vanish, and the young people have to come forward to educate themselves of these sciences, so that at least the next generation, क्योंकि आप खुद सोचो, 10,000 साल तक we survived the invasions, we survived wars, our way of life survived so many things, and now one generation is not educating themselves, and the way of life can disappear.
This has been a great conversation, as it always happens when you are on TV. Things are time bound, and I'm looking forward to having many more sessions with you, because this is a very important topic and we will talk more. So viewers, you have heard a young man speak out and share with him his journey of determination, of abandoning fear, embracing Sanatan practices and Sanatan way of life, and make a difference. So thank you, Ishan, for being here, and we will talk more. And thank you, viewers, for joining us today. And have a great weekend, and see you next week.